So in this exercise we are adding the stringers and the newel posts. The stringers are going to support the treads and the newel posts are going to support the stringers. Now the newel post will sit at this corner and at this point, so they're indicated on the CAD drawing by these symbols here, here and here, and this one is kind of a plan of the first floor level, so there's going to be one here and there'll be one in the corner as well. Now if you don't have access to the components, then you can easily make these. I'll give you the heights and sort of the overall dimensions. They don't have to be the ones that I've created, but just blocks that have been extruded would be fine for the purposes of putting this together. It's more about the principle really than anything else. So if you do have access to the components, then on the components window, if you go and open or create local collection and go to the folder chapter 6 and the stairs and OK that, then you'll have access to a couple of profiles. There's a complete newel post internal corner, that's for this one, it's slightly bigger, but I'll just bring in this one first, the complete newel post, and position it sort of there. If I go into X-ray mode, that's X if you've set up the shortcut key, you can see that the newel post, which is a component, is made up of a series of other components, and it's been constructed so that it replicates the manner in which it would be made in reality. It wouldn't be made out of one piece, there'd be all sorts of different things because there's a whole host of combinations of these things. So this turning, if I double click, then this is one component, this is another component, this is another component, and this is another one, and there'll be double ups of this, there'll be extended versions of this and shorter versions of this. So these things have a whole host of different sort of configurations that could be used. This one, which goes in the corner, this has got to take the support of the stringer coming down, so that's going to hit it at this point. It's going to be supported off the ground as well because it's anchoring the stair at this point. And it also has to take a handrail from this direction and a handrail from this direction, so you end up with this sort of unusual configuration. But next time you start walking up and down some interesting timber stairs, just have a look at the way these things have been constructed and you'll come to realize that there's a lot more to a stair than you ever give it credit for. So we'll position this one and also position this one. Now if you haven't got these, then the heights that I've got are, for this bit you could create one that's about 1200 mil high to that point. You could go to the top, which would be about 1325, and this one you're looking at something that's about 1925 as well. So 1325 for this one, 1925 for this one. Just create a 100 by 100 square and then pull that up and turn it into a component just to make life easy for yourself, or a group. It's not really important for the purposes of this, but that's the sort of thing you would need. When it comes to adding the base rail and the handrail profiles, again you can just create your own profile from that. It's not a complicated process once you understand what is involved. So let's position this, and I'll pop that in to line up with this one. We might have to adjust this later, but we'll just get it into the relative position to start off with, and again that might not be quite right. But the way it's going to work is, and I'll go back, toggle off X-ray mode, the way it's going to work is the stringer's going to be notched into this post and this post, and it's coming down into this post as well, and it'll be attached either to a newel post at this point, or it's going to be fixed to a joist that's going to trim out the landing area. Then the handrail is going to come from this one to this one, and then from this one to this one, and in between that, on top of the stringer, there'll be a base rail, and then the balustrade systems go in to that. Now I'll just start by creating some guidelines for the stringer. So I'll use the protractor tool, and what I want to do is just pick a point that I want to basically create a guideline from this point to this point. So this is going to give me the angle of the stair, and then I can use that to set the guidelines for the stringers. So if I pick this point, so if you are struggling to get it to sit vertically, then hover over a vertical face, finger on the shift key to lock it out, and then click at that point there. Then you need to click once in the horizontal direction, and then you can come up and click to that second point. Make sure it's the same relative point, so not an end point in that, it's got to be that one, and that'll give us the angle of the stair. So that should run through the rest of it. Now we want to make sure that our stringer sits above the edge of the nosing, so we don't see any nosing behind it. I'm not, say, constructing this in reality, but I'm going to move this up, say, an inch. So that's 25 mil. And I'm going to copy this. So move tool and tap the control key. And let's come down on the blue axis. We've got 320, so maybe 310. That's a foot. 310. And then that gives us a depth for our stringer. Now the width of the stringer is going to be about 38 mil, inch and a half. So we've got that sorted out. We need to do a similar thing in this direction. So once again, we need to move this out of the way so we can see the relative points. So the protractor tool again, hover over, lock out with the shift key, make sure you're on that end point, then click in the horizontal plane and click in that to that same relative point there. Select the guideline, move it up on the blue axis 25, enter, and then copy it down 310. So these have given us our guidelines for this. Now the string is going to trim out onto the floor, so it's going to cut along there. We can move this back in a second. But for the purposes of this, then we've got our trimmer guidelines set. And in the next video, we're going to be looking at drawing these in and then positioning them and moving these newel posts in to line up correctly. So guidelines are absolutely essential when you are using something like this. It's much easier to set up your geometry using the guidelines first than just drawing lines in, because the lines will have a tendency to stick to things. So don't be afraid to use guidelines wherever possible. I'm a massive fan of using these things, and they do help enormously when it comes to setting things out.